really reads like a public reckoning.
A stunning list of claims in a new lawsuit filed by Karen Reed against state police and Canton Police. Reed claims the agencies negligently hired and retained officers who were racist and sexist, which tainted their investigations, like the murder charge she was acquitted of last summer.
Committee for Public Counsel Services says the racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, and otherwise hateful messages exchanged by former Trooper Michael Proctor and former Sergeant Sean Goode are deeply troubling.
I believe the rot, in my opinion, in Massachusetts law enforcement goes all the way to the top.
A man is found dead in the snow outside a Canton, Massachusetts home. His girlfriend becomes the prime suspect, and the detective assigned to find the truth was already texting his friends about her. She's a whack job. Yeah, she's a babe. Hopefully she kills herself. Those messages came from Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, sent within hours of John O'Keefe's body being discovered. But here's what's different now. Because 4 years later, an 87-page lawsuit has just landed. And it doesn't just go after Proctor. It goes after the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police Department, and according to Karen Reed's attorneys, a culture of bigotry, misogyny, and institutional rot that stretched from the bottom of both organizations all the way to the top. The question this lawsuit is really asking isn't whether Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe. That question was settled in court. The question now is, how does a man like Michael Proctor get assigned to a homicide investigation in the first place? And why, allegedly, did no one stop him?
And when these messages were revealed, it went right up the flagpole, all the way to the colonel at the state police. And the district attorney was informed. I mean, the governor, Maura Healey, has publicly commented just on the vile and lewd messages about me, and not commented publicly that I've seen anywhere about what actually unfolded and how this might have affected his work ethic, his investigatory ethics. The Massachusetts State Police is governed by the governor of Massachusetts. And picking, as my private legal team exposes cop after cop, and they resign or they're demoted or they're fired, there's clearly a rot permeating the state police, and it's not just a coincidence, it's the ones that were involved in my case.
John O'Keefe was found unresponsive on the front lawn of 34 Fairview Road in Canton on the morning of January 29, 2022. He was a Boston police officer. He was Karen Reed's boyfriend. He was 46 years old. And within hours of his body being discovered, the lead investigator was texting about Karen Reed's appearance. Not the scene, not the evidence. What he thought was most important at the time was her. Reed's lawsuit alleges that investigators moved toward a predetermined conclusion, that Karen Reed did it, before the investigation had even properly begun. The complaint describes the investigation as biased and pre-decided, arguing that alternative theories about what happened to John O'Keefe were never genuinely pursued. That's a claim that defense teams make in almost every case. But here's where Karen's lawsuit is different from almost every other lawsuit you've ever heard. Because the receipts aren't theoretical. They're text messages. Thousands of them. And they're about to change how you see this entire case. Before we get into those texts, you need to understand why the investigation itself became so contested. The physical evidence in this case, the taillight fragments, the black box data from Reed's Lexus, the dog bite injuries, the Albert house where the afterparty took place, all of it became a battleground. Defense attorneys argued the scene wasn't properly secured, that key evidence wasn't collected, that the house at 34 Fairview Road, where O'Keefe had been just hours before his death, was never searched for blood, fingerprints, or DNA on the night he was found. In his own January 2026 court filing responding to an earlier lawsuit, Michael Proctor admitted he did not search the Albert house that night. He admitted interviews with house residents were not recorded. He denied those were failures. His attorneys argued his personal conduct had, quote, no bearing whatsoever on the investigation. But Reed's legal team has a different argument entirely. They say the investigation didn't fail because investigators were incompetent. They say it failed because of who was running it. Michael Proctor was a Massachusetts State Police trooper. He was the lead investigator on what would become one of the most watched criminal cases in the country. And while he was investigating, he was sending messages that would eventually get him fired, spark a state trial board proceeding, and now form the backbone of an 87-page civil lawsuit. Some of these messages have been public since his 2024 trial testimony. But the new lawsuit pulls in thousands more from his personal phone, obtained through court orders that had never been seen before. Within hours of O'Keefe's death, Proctor texted a friend that Reid was a babe with a weird Fall River accent. Less than a day into the investigation, he wrote she was Later he called her a whack job. He used a crude, dehumanizing term to describe her. He wrote, hopefully she kills herself. He appeared to joke about searching her phone for nude photos. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey called those messages disgusting and terrible. State Police Colonel Jeffrey Noble called them entirely inconsistent with any basic standard of decency. The State Police Trial Board found Proctor guilty of sending crude and defamatory messages about Reid. He was fired in March 2025. But here's the thing about those messages. Bad as they are, they're not even the most disturbing ones in the lawsuit. Not even close. This is where the lawsuit stops being a story about one difficult investigation and starts being a story about who these men actually were. According to the complaint, Proctor once texted Sean Goode, the Canton sergeant who responded to the crime scene the night O'Keefe was found, about a multi-car crash in Canton. His message: "Actually, take your time. I saw a person of color was involved, so I wouldn't rush if you're working. Let them die. They swore to serve and protect, by the way. Let's continue." In other messages attributed to Proctor in the complaint, he allegedly wrote, "Would have been nice if they were still our slaves. It should be Punch Person of Color Day in Canton today out of retribution. Detroit should be destroyed along with places like Flint, Michigan." He allegedly wrote that America sucks. Hitler was really onto something, then the US had to step in and ruin it. These were not messages sent under stress in a high-pressure investigation. These were messages exchanged over years, dating back to at least 2013 according to the complaint, before the Karen Reid case, before John O'Keefe died, long before Proctor was ever assigned to anything involving her. Reid's lawsuit argues these messages prove one critical thing. This wasn't a man who developed a bias during an investigation. This was a man who was already deeply biased before he ever walked onto that crime scene. And the question the lawsuit is now putting to two police departments is, how did you not know? Sean Goode was not a fringe figure in this case. He was the Canton police sergeant who responded to the scene the night O'Keefe was found. He testified in Reid's first trial. He was a central figure in the early investigation. In October 2025, he was placed on paid leave amid an internal affairs investigation. He refused to appear for his internal affairs interview. The town of Canton initiated termination proceedings. And on May 29, 2026, just days before Karen Reid filed her lawsuit, Sean Goode resigned effective June 2nd. He resigned before his termination hearing could take place. 2 days later, the lawsuit dropped. According to the complaint, Goode's messages are just as disturbing as Proctor's. He allegedly called Boston Mayor Michelle Wu a little He allegedly called New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft a terribly Jew. The lawsuit says Goode and Proctor used racial slurs throughout their years of communication, with what the complaint describes as reckless abandon. Reid's attorneys put it plainly in the filing: Proctor and Goode were unfit for positions of public trust, and yet they were handed badges, promotions, and ultimately control of homicide investigations despite harboring deep-seated and abhorrent anti-woman, racist, anti-Semitic, and homophobic ideologies for more than a decade. Emphasis on more than a decade. That's not a bad day. That's a pattern. And here's where this case stops being about two officers.
Karen Reid's legal team says they are bringing this lawsuit to bring a, quote, unflinching reckoning to police in the state of Massachusetts.
Really reads like a public reckoning.
A stunning list of claims in a new lawsuit filed by Karen Reid against state police and Canton police. Reid claims the agencies negligently hired and retained officers who were racist and sexist, which tainted their investigations.
This is the detail that makes this lawsuit a genuine legal and institutional threat. Karen Reid isn't just suing Michael Proctor. She isn't just suing Sean Goode. She is suing the Massachusetts State Police and the town of Canton Police Department for what she argues they knew, or should have known, about the men they put in charge of a homicide investigation. The complaint levels allegations of negligent hiring, negligent training, negligent supervision. It argues that the warning signs were there for years, that both departments either missed them through incompetence or tolerated them through culture. Remember, those messages from Proctor date back to 2013. He applied to the Boston Police Department before being hired by state police, and BPD didn't hire him. The state police did in 2013. Reid's complaint argues that had any real vetting been done, had anyone actually looked at who they were promoting, these men would never have gotten near a homicide case. The Massachusetts State Police's response through Colonel Noble was to call the messages deeply disturbing and say they do not reflect the values of the agency. Canton issued a statement calling the messages abhorrent, deeply offensive, hateful. They pointed to the actions taken against Goode and to the ongoing post-commission investigation. Canton officials specifically said, claims that the town knowingly ignored misconduct or failed to take these allegations seriously are inconsistent with the actions taken. But the lawsuit doesn't accept that framing. Reid's attorneys call both organizations emblematic of the failure to responsibly exercise the trust and faith the public puts in these institutions. And if this goes to discovery, if both departments have to open their internal records, what else might be in there? That's not a rhetorical question. That's exactly what this lawsuit is designed to find out. The phrase that appears repeatedly in Karen Reid's 87-page complaint is not bad officer. It's not isolated incident. The phrase is embedded culture. The complaint alleges bigotry, misogyny, systemic failures, and institutional rot, not at the edges of these organizations but, quote, at the very core of both. It describes Proctor and Goode as virulent bigots, with unrepentant hatred for women, Black Americans, Asian Americans, Jews, Hispanics, Arabs, and gay people. It argues those ideologies were protected or at minimum unchallenged within both departments for over a decade. This language matters legally, because embedded culture is not just a moral allegation, it's a structural one. It's the kind of claim that, if proven, can hold an institution legally liable for the actions of its employees. Reid's lawyers described the lawsuit as a clarion call for reform and accountability. They wrote that the complaint transcends Ms. Reid's personal and actionable grievance. What they're arguing in plain terms is that John O'Keefe deserved better investigators than these. And so does every person who has ever been investigated, charged, or judged by either department. If you know someone who should hear this story, share this video. Because what this lawsuit is laying out is bigger than one case. The lawsuit didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of 2 trials and nearly 4 years of legal warfare. And the specific way those trials ended created the legal foundation for everything Karen Reid is now doing. Her first trial in the summer of 2024 ended in a mistrial. Jurors said they were at an impasse. Proctor was immediately relieved of duty the same day the mistrial was declared. Her retrial began in early 2025. This time, the prosecution introduced Proctor's sexist texts themselves during trial. A stunning and telling decision that signaled just how much damage his credibility had suffered. Reid was acquitted of second-degree murder. Acquitted of manslaughter. Convicted only on the OUI count. She was sentenced to 1 year of probation. The acquittals didn't just end her criminal case. They became the legal foundation for everything that followed. Because under the complaint filed in November 2025 and the state lawsuit filed June 4, 2026, Reid's team argues those outcomes, and the investigation that led to them, exposed a prosecution built on bias, not evidence. For 3.5 years, the November lawsuit states, Reid was wrongly accused of homicide and subjected to suspicion, arrest, 2 prosecutions and public condemnation, all resulting from the gross misconduct of the Massachusetts State Police. Reid's own civil team put it more directly in August 2025, right after the acquittal. She told one interviewer, "You lost. You lost big time. And you know what you did." She wasn't done fighting. She was just getting started. When Karen Reid appeared on NBC's Today show after filing the June 2026 lawsuit, the host asked her what she hoped to get out of it. Her answer was one of the most striking things she said throughout this entire case. She said what she wants, you cannot write on a check.
Why file this lawsuit now? You already have one lawsuit in the queue. Why do this now?
This was always our plan, that I had to save my own life first. I can't do anything if I'm not free. And I had to fight for my freedom for years. And I knew as it unfolded, I was never going to be able to just forget that this happened to me, that I was wronged in this way. I couldn't just go back to life as it was. I have to continue fighting for justice. The acquittal is deserved, but the wrongs have not been completely righted. They've been happening along the way, but I always knew this was going to happen if I could get the help legally to do this.
Let's talk about that for a moment, Alan, because again, as we just saw in Laura's story there, Sergeant Goode's been fired,
right.
Lieutenant Proctor fired. They're both gone. The departments have said that there was wrongdoing. They've admitted that. From a legal standpoint, what do you precisely want to see happen here that has not already happened?
Well, it's a civil case. So the remedy is the law speaks in dollars, but that's not what the ultimate goal is here. The ultimate goal is to ensure that we bring to the light the institutional biases, the institutional corruption that permeates the Massachusetts law enforcement system. That's what this lawsuit's going to do, ultimately. What Karen wants, you cannot write on a check, which is exposure. Exposure of the corruption that is the DNA of the Massachusetts State Police, of the Canton Police Department, which is evidenced by these two individuals in their text messages. They were in a position where they felt comfortable within their own family, the family of law enforcement, to send these vile text messages, to send these vile voicemails that are reflective of a deeper problem in the culture. That's what we want to expose.
John, let's talk about John for a second, Karen, because you dated for 2 years. You got so close with his family, his nieces, his nephews. You went on vacation together, right? This is somebody that you loved. And yet, I think for a lot of people, somehow he gets lost sometimes in this conversation.
Well, he's not lost. He's the reason we're doing this.
I think people sometimes wonder, are you doing this for John, or are we trying to go after institutional corruption? Are we trying to get you money damages? What is the goal?
John was the victim of this institutional corruption, and we're the voice for John. And I have lived nearly daily John's final moments, and what happened to him, what was on his phone, what was the temperature of his phone, what was his interactions that I had experienced prior to his death with members of the family that lived in that house. And this all revolves around John.
She said she has no job, that her time is entirely devoted to this case, that she will not stop. The lawsuit seeks financial damages, including compensation for legal fees, lost income, emotional distress, and reputational harm accumulated over more than 3 years of prosecution. But the more significant goal, reading between the lines of the complaint itself, is discovery, depositions, internal records, the chance to force both departments to answer under oath what they knew about Michael Proctor and Sean Goode and when they knew it. Whatever you believe about the underlying facts of John O'Keefe's death, and this case remains contested, what Karen Read is doing right now is using the civil justice system as a spotlight. And a lot of people in Massachusetts are watching to see what it illuminates. If you want to stay current on where this goes, and it will go somewhere because this case never stops moving, subscribe right now. Every major development in this case will come to this channel first. So here's where things stand as of June 2026. Karen Read has filed the state lawsuit against Massachusetts State Police and Canton Police, filed June 4th. She also has a separate federal civil lawsuit already in progress against civilian witnesses and investigators, alleging collusion to frame her. John O'Keefe's family has a wrongful death lawsuit against Karen Read, still active. They allege she struck O'Keefe with her SUV. Read's attorneys have moved to dismiss it. That motion is pending, Sean Goode resigned before his termination hearing. The internal affairs investigation into him is continuing, and results will be submitted to the Post Commission, which oversees police certification in Massachusetts. Michael Proctor, fired in March 2025, has filed his own response in federal court, denying the conspiracy and planting allegations while admitting to certain procedural decisions that drew heavy scrutiny. His attorney maintains that his personal life had no bearing on the investigation. The Massachusetts State Police has condemned the messages. Canton has condemned the messages. Both have said the messages don't reflect their values. But the lawsuit is asking a harder question than, do you condemn these messages? It's asking, why were the men sending them ever trusted with a homicide? 4 years ago, a Boston police officer was found dead in the snow. A woman was accused of killing him. 2 trials followed. A mistrial. An acquittal. A conviction on a lesser charge. And now, the investigators themselves are the ones under a microscope. Whether you believe Karen was framed or whether you believe the prosecution simply couldn't prove its case, the messages in this lawsuit are real. The firings are real. The resignation is real. And the question this complaint is forcing into public view: how do officers who write messages like these end up running a homicide investigation? Is one that deserves an answer. Because if the allegations in this lawsuit are proven, this case was never just about Karen Read. It was about what happens when the people entrusted to find the truth become part of the cover-up. What do you think? Tell me in the comments, and I mean it, I'd check out every single one. And if you've followed this case from the beginning and want to see where it goes next, subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because the Karen Read saga is nowhere near finished.